UFC 101 was held on August the 8th, 2009 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It was the first ever UFC event held in Philadelphia. The event featured the second title defense of lightweight champion BJ Penn against Kenny Florian and a non-title light heavyweight bout with Anderson Silva, the reigning middleweight champion, against former light heavyweight champion Forrest Griffin. Silva had already run through the top competition in the middleweight division and was moving up to light heavyweight for the second time. Forrest Griffin was expected by some to give Silva his biggest challenge yet. On paper, Forrest looked very capable of stopping Silva, or at least hanging with him for a few rounds. Now let's look at some of the key points surrounding this fight. Forrest is naturally one of the larger men in the division. Forrest was a former champion of the division and held highly impressive wins over Rampage Jackson and Shogun Rua. Forrest has a great chin, accurate and calculated striking, and strong wrestling and submission skills. Anderson looked lackluster in his last title defense and had previously talked about a potential retirement in the near future. His drive to compete was in question. Most figured Forrest, who usually comes into fights with a solid game plan in place, would want to take Silva down and wrestle him. Sean Smith of Bleacher Report was quoted leading up to this fight saying, "No one has ever brought the fight to Anderson Silva the way that Griffin will. He will push the pace and look to take the fight out of Silva. It will be Silva's reaction which determines how this fight will go. If Silva can deal with the pace Griffin keeps, then he should be able to control where the fight takes place. However, if Griffin can throw Silva off of his game with his relentless attack, he might be able to cause problems and catch Silva off guard." Most figured Forrest would take a few early shots from Silva, and his heavy heart and warrior mentality would kick in. Most figured they would see a back-and-forth competition between two great fighters. And they were wrong. Very wrong. What we saw was something amazing. Even though Anderson Silva was already regarded as the top pound-for-pound fighter in the world, this caught everybody surprised. What Anderson Silva showed in the octagon was the perfect performance against the champion. Forrest was quickly and completely dismantled within 3.5 minutes, losing in the worst and most embarrassing way imaginable. I've seen fighters get dominated before. I've seen fighters be outmatched, and I've seen quick knockouts, but nothing like this. Forrest Griffin suffered the worst loss in UFC history. Silva waited for over 2 minutes or so, feeling Forrest out, before knocking him down with a looping right. He then started toying with Forrest, like a cat playing with an injured mouse. He began dropping his hands and taunting Forrest, ducking and weaving every punch that was thrown before knocking Forrest down again with a straight left. After offering to help him up, Anderson continued letting Forrest swing at him. Finally, it seemed like he became bored. He effortlessly reached in on Forrest's oncoming flurry of punches and dropped him with one quick right jab. Forrest lay on the mat like a broken man, like a soulless, hollow shell, like a beaten man completely overwhelmed by another man's immensely superior skills. He was done. Not knocked out, just done. The ref then called the fight. The crowd in attendance, whom had surprisingly booed Silva in the introduction, were in complete awe. Anderson celebrated, while Forrest immediately hopped up and ran backstage. Yes, he almost did a full speed sprint, with his corner and security trying to catch up behind him. The UFC 101 event was titled Declaration. Anderson Silva made his declaration in the strongest way possible. He proved that he was truly the pound-for-pound greatest fighter in the world, a title that is often thrown around, but now had found its home and its most deserving suitor.